Happening now on Grid Tonight. Chase Briscoe is replacing Martin Truex Jr. at Gibbs Racing next year. Is Briscoe ready to manage high expectations while driving for one of NASCAR's top teams? Gene Haas is keeping one charter and will remain in the NASCAR Cup Series full-time under the new Haas Factory Team. What should we expect from the new look Haas? Kyle Larson's spotter, Tyler Monn, criticized him for not racing Denny Hamlin the same way he races him. Does Monn have a point? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me are Joshua Birch and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index. And here's a friendly reminder, Grid Tonight now begins 30 minutes earlier at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, being courteous to my two friends to the right of me from the UK, since it's very late over there. So this is happening effective immediately every Wednesday night moving forward, and we encourage everyone to comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now, Josh, take it away with our top story this evening. It's basically an all NASCAR show tonight.
It really is all NASCAR. Good evening, Kobe. Good evening, Matt. I love when that grid ident plays because I feel like Mike from Monsters Inc. as well in the adverts, when he waves and it's all cut off by the logo. I love it every week. It makes me laugh. So, one of the worst kept secrets in NASCAR has been finally revealed because that Christopher Bell has accidentally revealed last Friday at New Hampshire. As well, it has now been made official yesterday. Poking fun at the situation, Gibbs Racing had Bell attend the press conference to finish what he started by having him announce that Chase Briscoe is the new driver of the number 19 Toyota in 2025. Briscoe will replace Martin Truex Jr. with Bass Pro Shops returning to sponsor the car, along with crew chief James Small continuing to lead the number 19 team. Now, during the press conference to confirm Briscoe's new home for 2025 and beyond, Briscoe opened up about the process of becoming a JGR driver. According to him, as soon as Stewart-Haas Racing announced plans to cease operations, he started texting multiple team presidents searching for a new ride while in the SHR conference room. The deal between Briscoe and JGR came together as both sides showed significant interest in each other. Team owner Joe Gibbs praised Briscoe's character and believes he can win in their equipment. One of the things that stood out the most to Briscoe was JGR being the only team he spoke to who didn't ask him how much sponsorship money he could bring to the organization. It made Briscoe feel like they wanted him for him and not how much money he could give the team for his sponsors. The graphic courtesy of Joe Gibbs Racing. Matt, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Is Chase Briscoe ready to meet the moment as well and become one of the top drivers in the Cup Series at Gibbs Racing?
Firstly, the hills are alive behind you, Josh. Is Chase Briscoe ready to lead or be leading or part of this team? It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at the way this season has already begun to shape itself, and we're pretty much halfway through now, he's the third pick out of the SHR stable. Josh Berry's been doing a fabulous job in his rookie season, rookie full-time season. And Noah Gregson's been going pretty decently as well, especially over the last month or so, whereas Chase has kind of dropped off a little bit, perhaps. It's an interesting pickup. Of course, Christopher Bell did drop the clanger on Friday in the press conference, so this was, we knew was coming, and I guess they put it out as early as they could do to avoid any more embarrassment on Christopher Bell's part, but good to see he took it all in good spirit. I think the sponsorship fits. If Bass Pro Shops are sticking around on the 19 team, I think that kind of fits with Chase Briscoe, who, to your point about bringing sponsorship, has never really had massive backers behind him through especially his Xfinity career. So he was part of the Brad Keselowski truck team from memory as well. Before that, which of course was funded, but through the Xfinity portion of his career, he didn't really have a massive amount of money behind him. So if Bass Pro Shops are going to be kicking around and auto owners potentially as well, then that's all good. He doesn't have that to worry about. I think he and James Small would make a very good team. How quickly they'll gel, of course, is going to be interesting. But by the sound of things, he was straight on to everybody there as soon as the announcement was official that the SHL were no longer going to be continuing in that guise. More on that kind of story in a moment. But good to see him in the championship continuing. I hope, maybe he'll have some of his current sponsors move across with him as well, like we often see when drivers flick across from different team to team. So, I don't think he would have been my pick. It does seem slightly strange, or maybe Gibbs. Obviously, how far back in their plan they knew that Truex had, decided this was going to be his last year. Of course, we got that word last week, wasn't it? That we talked about that on the show. But they've moved quickly to a bit like the MotoGP silly season to some regard. They've moved quickly to get someone in straight away and lock it all up. And it's going to be interesting to see how it all gels together with chasing the 19 next year.
Yeah, silly seasons are really blowing up massively. MotoGP as well. We're going to get more news this weekend and talk a bit more about it on next week's show, because there's still a few more moving parts that is expected to be announced this weekend. Also, Carlos Sainz, we're expecting him to make an announcement at Silverstone about where he'll be racing in 2025 as well. Strong rumours at the moment that he signed a deal with Williams Racing, and they're waiting for the home event for the drivers to have that. So we'll bring you more news on silly season as we go. Good evening, I should say, to Adam. He says, good evening, guys. I think Chase Briscoe can win at JGR next year. A good replacement for Martin Truex Jr. By the way, the hills are live with the sound of music. They really are as well. I love my backdrop. I get to bring it out twice a year.
Yeah, he's certainly, to Adam's point, got the equipment under him now, perhaps more to win. It gives the powerhouse team, though, them and Hendrick at the moment at the front end of the Cup Series. So he's certainly got a better equipment under him than he would currently have at SHR. So yes, certainly he's got one Cup win under his belt for his career. And now he's got a real chance to add to that tally.
Absolutely. And speaking of being a top contender, Briscoe was one of the top drivers in the Xfinity Series back in 2020 before Stewart-Haas Racing promoted him to the Cup Series. Now, during that season, Briscoe won 9 Xfinity races. So we know what he's capable of when you give him a good car that can compete for wins weekly. However, whenever you get behind the wheel of a Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota or replace a championship-winning driver like Truex Jr., the expectations will be very high, and Briscoe seems to understand that. While speaking to the media, Briscoe said that he has to win in the number 19 Toyota because there are no excuses not to win in this quality of equipment, citing the need to make the playoffs and concerns about future team owners not being willing to take a chance on him if he fails to deliver with JCR. So we've seen some criticism about JCR signing Briscoe. Do you believe he will surprise the naysayers and ultimately prove them wrong in the long run?
Well, to my point before, he's definitely now got the equipment under him and a very experienced crew chief in James Small. Of course, we've been working with Martin Truex Jr. for a very long time with that team and previous. So I think we're going to have to go through that normal first 6 to 10 races, probably up to the Coke 600 next year, kind of gelling phase for him within the organization. But you never know, he could come out and win the Daytona 500 straight off the bat. So certainly I think he will win. Whether he'll be a continual championship contender like Truex has been, and like Bell and Hamlin have been over the last few years and will be going forward, they'll be obviously now the 2 real focal points of the JGR stable going forward, remains to be seen. But certainly he'll have a chance to pick off plenty of victories with a much better equipment under him than he's got currently at SHR.
And as we know, while Stewart-Haas Racing, as we know it, will cease operations at the end of the 2024 season, a part of the team will stick around under the new name of Haas Factory Team. Now, SHR is selling 3 of its current charters in the NASCAR Cup Series, but the Haas Factory Team will keep one of them and run full-time at the Premier level, with Gene Haas as the sole owner, while Joe Costa will serve as the team president. We'll also see the team run 2 full-time entries in the Xfinity Series. Gene Haas said his commitment to motorsports hasn't changed, only the scope of his involvement. And because of operating 4 Cup teams requires a lot of effort and downsizing allows him to continue promoting Haas automation and growing HaasTooling.com. Now, there's no telling who's going to be part of the Xfinity program in 2025, but they'll definitely have a pool of drivers to choose from the Haas Cup car. Now, with Chase Briscoe, as we've said, off to Joe Gibbs Racing, SHR still has Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, and Ryan Preece unsigned. Now, however, given the appointment of Joe Costa as team president, it wouldn't be a surprise to see his son, defending Xfinity Series champion Cole Custer, return to the Premier level. When asked about the Haas Factory Team Cup rider for next year, Custer said it was always a goal for him to return to the Cup Series, and he believes that he's learned a lot since his first stint in the Cup, and the photo he had taken by James Gilbert from Getty Images as well. So are you surprised that Gene Haas is sticking around in NASCAR? And do you believe it's inevitable that Cole Custer will get that NASCAR ride?
Not surprised at all that Gene is sticking around. You know, he's been in this sport now for a number of years before the Tony Stewart tie-up, so this isn't a surprise. What does surprise me is the name. It sounds very MotoGP, Josh, doesn't it? The Haas Factory Team. Sounds like he's on a Repsol Honda or a or a Marlboro Ducati from back in the day. But that'll take some getting used to. But I think it looks very much likely that Cole Custer is going to end up in that car. And that's good. That's a good thing, because, you know, we like to see, sorry, I've got something in my eye. We like to see the progression, and Cole's been kind of up and down, floating about between the Cup and the Xfinity Series for the last few years, but he's proved to be a winner in both. And of course, the current champion in the Xfinity Series didn't find a berth in the Cup Series for this year, but if he can perhaps do the double, then certainly his promotion would be validated by that. And it would be good to have him back in the Cup Series, and perhaps downsizing the team down to just a single car. Maybe they can run a second entry at selected events perhaps down the line. That's obviously something that will perhaps pop up, will help them. And just, you know, pointing the wedge and getting everyone singing off the same hymn sheet in terms of setup and everything like that. And because I feel like the whole SHR thing, and we've talked about it at length on the show over the last couple of months, has just been a little bit all over the place, with drivers coming in and out and retiring and all that kind of thing. And now, of course, with the future of all of their drivers, apart from Chase Briscoe, as announced on the show before, to be sorted, they're a little bit all over the place. But maybe this streamlining of the whole team will give them some benefit.
And hopefully a bit more cash to come into Haas overall that they can fund back into their F1 program. I mean, some of their pit crew equipment hasn't changed since when they entered Formula One back in 2016, we learnt last season as well. So hopefully there are some improvements to come and cash flow better at the team. The Little Owl, hello Jack, says, "Hey Grid Network, I am personally really happy to see Briscoe get such an amazing opportunity as well." And the Little Owl as well made his NASCAR commentary debut on JBM last week as well, and did really, really well. And he says also, I can see Custer getting that ride as well. I think it's pretty much writing on the wall. I wonder where Josh Berry is going to end up as well. John Bender says, bring Eckers up to the Xfinity next year with Haas Racing as well. That's an option to come through, isn't it, as well, Matt?
Yeah.
So,
Eckers has been a long time in the Truck Series and is a multiple winner and championship contender. So that would be, if they're looking to promote from further down, then that's certainly a name that will be perhaps high on the shopping list. But all signs, it seems, are pointing to Cole Custer. That's another of those secrets in the paddock that just need to be signed off, a bit like the Chase Briscoe one. Thank you, Christopher Bell.
Oh, I was so annoyed that we had a cut down pre-show, because we had it all lined up, discussion points and everything, and a 30-minute pre-show got thrown out the window for a 6-minute welcome to the show. I know, it was so bad. But that's the way we work in motorsport sometimes as well. I mean, our IndyCar coverage was cut down dramatically as well, as I know yours was. And it played havoc with our grid review shows here as well. So it's been tricky, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. And we appreciate you all watching. And we're actually going to take it back to the NASCAR race that happened on Sunday, starting with our first hot topic of the night, because NASCAR used the wet weather tyres to conclude the Cup Series race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway following a rain delay. However, they didn't leave it up to the teams to decide what tyres to put on. As we saw in the race, there was a time when the field had to stay on the same set of wet weather tyres, and they weren't allowed to switch to slicks or another set of wets. Now, towards the end of the race, enough teams complained about tyre wear, and NASCAR eventually let them put on another set of wets. When asked about the decision-making related to NASCAR's handling of the tyres, Senior Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer said that they are still in the learning process with these tyres and do this in the safest way possible. Sawyer also left the door open in the future, adding that NASCAR would like to get out of the tyre business here and eventually let the teams decide for themselves how they want to manage their tyres. The photo courtesy there of Goodyear. Now, on the flip side, Christopher Bell's crew chief, Adam Stevens, said he disagrees with letting the teams decide when to switch from wet to slicks on an oval track. Now, here's the full quote from Stevens, courtesy of Andrew Kurland from Dirty Mo Media. This is what Adam had to say. I would not be in favour of letting teams decide when to change to slicks. This would be too dangerous, in my opinion. At the road courses, we have huge runoffs in all the big braking zones. Virtually any place you are at a high risk of speed, you are a straight line braking, and you have quite a distance to miss the corner. At ovals, we do not. If the teams are given the option to put slicks on, we will be forced to be aggressive and turn the race into a bleep show. At a road course, you generally don't lose a lap pitting under green, so you can wait until you are ready to change to slicks. At the ovals, you will lose a lap pitting under green, so you will want to pit under caution. If the caution falls between the track is ready, someone will go for the slicks and take on way too much risk. That risk puts not only their team in danger, but all the teams around them. I think the oval math is just fundamentally different than the road course math. Now, I agree with that personally as well. It makes more sense on ovals that there's a sort of dictation, but as we saw, it didn't really work out on Sunday with how long we had to wait for the track to actually dry. So in these circumstances, should NASCAR eventually take the hands-off approach and let the teams do whatever they want with the tyres? And also, does Stevens bring up valid concerns, or do you disagree with him completely?
Well, to use a Ben and last week Jackson thing, I haven't got a can of fizzy drink to crack open here, but I'm gonna crack into this because the whole of what happened on Sunday, I was going to say afternoon, but evening, as it turned out, was just so annoying. Put aside obviously we knew there was going to be rain. They moved the start time up so they could get the race started. We got past halfway. There was a lot of time there that NASCAR could have said, we're done here. Here's the result. Tyler Reddick's the winner. And we saw from the shots that there was the throng of press around his pit bay down there, ready for him to be announced as the race winner. And I think they were moments away from that happening just before the IndyCar race started, and then that all went squirrely when the sun suddenly came out. The track obviously had to be dried. Now, the first portion of that is how far do you go with the drying? They don't run the wiper anymore on the ovals like we did for a little while when there was a potential of running the wet tyre. Now there's no wiper, so there would be a spray issue. So you can understand it from that point of view. They don't want the track to be too wet, but then how far in the drying process do you go? And I feel like they probably on Sunday went a little bit too far. We saw them run this tyre at Richmond earlier on in the year, and that was at the start of the race when they knew there was no more rain coming. At New Hampshire on Sunday, we knew there was more rain coming. It had come from Watkins Glen, and it affected the end of the IMSA race. It was the same band making its way up that northeastern seaboard. So we knew there was more rain coming. We got to a point where on the straights especially, now it was a great spectacle. I won't say anything against the spectacle of there being every single line possible being used in the corners. it looked like everyone was coming out of the pits. They were so low down on the apron in turns 1 and 2, especially. Then you got to the point where everyone's complaining about the tyres being worn out, but they were stopping them from coming into change, and then did let them change, but they let them change to another set of wets. Now, the problem was the track was almost dry at that point, so the new set of wets would have put them in a worse position, grip-wise, than the already warm and worn wets on the car. And I said during the commentary on USRN on Sunday, this isn't the way to go. We need to be changing to slick tyres because the track is pretty much dry. And we also said, watch out here, the dirt guys will make the best of this, and they did. We had Briscoe, Larson and Bell up there towards the front end, towards the end of the race. People like Denny Hamlin all fell backwards. Keselowski was another one that fell back through the field. They need to let them open this up. I understand what Adam Stevens is saying with his point there, but this is the same as on a, let's say, a really worn oval, like a Darlington, for instance, where we know that tyre wear is huge, but people come in and put a fresh set of tyres on and go like heck and gain all that time back again on the undercut and get themselves in front. This is the same kind of thing. It's the first person that goes to slicks at the right time makes the difference, and that could change the race and that car and that team's race and potentially put them in the playoffs. If someone that was running around at the back end of the field decided to come in there and put some and had the opportunity to put some dry tyres on, they could have changed their season by getting up there and potentially winning. So I understand what Adam Stevens is saying, but there has to be a point where we stop holding the team's hands, let them go and do their own thing. New Hampshire is going to probably be the biggest oval that these tyres are used on. We saw them at Richmond. We've seen them at Martinsville previously in the Xfinity Series, I think it was, last year. And now we've seen them at New Hampshire. We're not going to run them on any kind of more banking than those tracks. So this was the big test really for them, because this is the biggest track. We're not going to see them at Pocono, for instance, in a couple of weeks' time, because it's just too fast. So, and it will take weeks to dry the place because it's so stupidly big. But
they just tend to call that one, don't they, off immediately if it
generally,
rains,
yeah.
we're
And,
done.
yeah, and we've seen rain and fog races, of course, before at Pocono. So I think this was. I don't think we'll see those tyres again now this year. Maybe at Martinsville in the fall, perhaps, but it'll be too cold as well for them there once we get back to Martinsville in October. So next year, if this happens again, just let them go. If they crash, they crash. Because we saw after they got back underway, we had numerous yellows, a lot of which, and of course the tyre changes, they were non-competitive pit stops. So then we lost 3 or 4 laps every time under caution, getting the field reset in the right order. And then we almost lost the last couple of laps to light because it was so dark. That got a 20
and that new rule.
Yeah, exactly. Then I know it's new to NASCAR, and I guess for our perspective, Josh, we've seen Formula One down the years and IndyCar on road courses and so many other things where we have wet to dry races or dry to wet races, and it makes, it's new for NASCAR. They don't, this is going to sound right, they don't know what they're doing in that situation, but they've got no experience of it. And maybe we will see something different next year. But as I say, Richmond, Martinsville, New Hampshire, they're probably going to be the only 3 races or tracks that we perhaps see these tyres. Anyway, I think to clarify my points, they dried it too much. And then they should have allowed them to change when they changed to the second set of wets, they should have allowed them to put slick tyres on. We would have got to the end quicker and we wouldn't have had so much caution.
Yeah, if they were fine, as you say, on what is medium worn tyres, which basically worn down to slicks, they would have been fine on slick tyres. We could have gone the distance there. So it was a silly decision, and it did look dark, didn't it, towards the end of that race? There
was a shot of Kyle Larson's tyres that had come off his car all stacked up in the pit lane, and they were blistered to nothing. There was a shot of someone's inside edge that was completely gone. It was just slick on the inside. So you get to a point where these tyres aren't working. Oh, I know, let's put a big fresh set with all the higher channels and everything in it. again, their first rodeo with this NASCAR. It's been a while since NASCAR's had to do something for a first, apart from the dirt race at Bristol a couple of years ago, perhaps. And they just got it a little bit wrong.
Well, they got the street race a bit wrong as well in Chicago. The amount of errors we saw there in terms of things and barriers, and for instance, tires.
Yeah, I mean, again,
just silly little things.
And we see that often with new street tracks, don't we, from other series? And hopefully that in a couple of weeks will be tidied up. And hopefully for NASCAR's, we won't see a wet race at Chicago again in a couple of weeks. But perhaps if you're a Shane Van Gisbergen fan, you would want it to rain again.
I'd just like some drama with it. I want the rain. I want a wet street course race again like we had last year.
Not as much as last year, where we almost had the whole thing cancelled.
Yeah, light drizzle. That'll do for me. Just enough to get it out there.
Moist, damp, greasy.
Yeah. Yes. Just enough to make them a challenge for everybody. That's what I want as well.
As a commonly used phrase here in the UK, just enough to wet the ground.
Yes, exactly. And as British know what we're on about when it comes to rain. I think we're the world champions in rain. Okay, we got some comments coming through as well. Isaac says, I think Hayley Deegan to join the JR Motorsports in 2025. Hayley Deegan should join as well. That's a possibility as well. I think but I know JD was in trouble earlier on, I read on Twitter, coming through with their apology statement that came in. John says, well, who will run the Hans Xfinity car next year in place of Custer? Ooh.
Priest, perhaps. Give him somewhere where he can go and win races. We saw him go into Truck Series a couple of years ago and win a couple of races, and that kind of promoted him back to the full-time Cup ride. So if Custer comes up, which, as we said, assume probably is likely, I would like to see Ryan Priest get that ride. If not, someone else from Trucks or Xfinity, like an Eckes that we mentioned before.
Yeah. That's a possibility. Is there any more coming through on the comment? Yes, we do. I'd love for Eccles to get that ride, says the little owl as well. In reply to John, as I'm being attacked by Daddy Longlegs. There's another one. Oh, it's Fly City over here. The little owl says to Isaac, I think Hayley is a bust at this point. Brett Moffitt was regularly contending for top 15s in that car as well. Last season, and Adam says that was one of the craziest races I've ever seen at Loudon as well. Really was quite high,
It was the craziest race at Loudon since that 2011 IndyCar race at Loudon, where Tony Kanaan knocked over the Portaloo and Will Power did the thing.
Yeah,
that was at Loudon, and that was rain affected.
It was, which one was the one where everybody was on slick tires and they all restarted the race with 7 to go and it was a wet track and everyone just.
I think it was that one.
Out. Yeah, I think it was as well. Yeah. I was having flashbacks during the commentary as well. John says Moffitt should get a full-time Xfinity ride as well. And our own Ben Schneider's here as well.
See, I thought this might come up. Ben says, disagree with Matt if he thinks they should have called it. I'm glad they tried and ultimately succeeded in finishing, but 100% agree with him that we need better clarification. Yes, we do. Now, I did say at the time on the platform, just call the race, because we'd sat there for 2 hours. We were getting closer and closer to the IndyCar window, which was supposed to be the NASCAR race was supposed to be the lead-in on USA in the States to the IndyCar race, which even less people then watched because it got bumped to, even though it was on probably 2 channels, I think. I tried to keep up what was going on, but
I
even less
don't
people
know if that's me or Matt, so we'll wait a second until one of us pop back in.
It's probably me because
tonight.
I can still hear you fine.
Bear with us. Here we go. Hello, we're back. Right, you cut out for a little bit, but can you hear us, Matt?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you cut off at the race was supposed to be the lead-in in NASCAR to IndyCar.
NASCAR was supposed to kind of lead into IndyCar on USA, and then it got bumped to Peacock, so even less people saw the IndyCar race than would do normally. Thank you, Fox, for that for next year. So it's just the sitting around waiting until almost before the TV window slammed, a bit like we saw at Charlotte 6 weeks or so ago. Yes, fair play, they got it in, but only just because it was very, very dark there at the end. But the frustration of it being started early and then sitting around for 2 hours and 2.5 hours for then it to finish it, and again this is a European-based comment, but for it to finish at 1:40 a.m. on a Monday morning after it started at 5 p.m. Was extremely frustrating, let's say.
It was. I had to
Especially
leave the
after-
commentary.
Yeah, especially after, we've sat through the Indy 500 delay and such like a few weeks ago. Just felt a bit like deja vu. Max Fish says, put wipers on them and let the teams decide when to use the wets. Can't disagree with that at all. I don't know why they took the wiper off.
The little R says to Ben, agree with you. Honestly, while I was campaigning for them to call the race, I'm glad they did let the race continue. As I said this during the Le Mans coverage as well, if anybody caught it. Motorsport fans are like goldfish. We will complain during the weather delay, but the second racing starts, wow, this is the best thing ever. It's
Same
the
for the
same
Imola
thing
race
as
on
all.
Sunday at the Glen. That had a stoppage for rain as well.
I might get it on a t-shirt, actually. Motorsport fans are goldfish. That might be quite a saying, actually. Jack says, I might have also been a little biased as Reddick is my favourite driver when that red flag came out. Yes, that's true. We've also had tempers with Bubba parking his car in front of Gregson on pit road. Yeah, that's all come through. It's been mad in that race. John says, start the races earlier so they don't run later at races that don't have lights like Loudon. Yeah, exactly. And I don't like the fact that, as you say, we all sat there during the weather delay, and then it completely mucked up everybody's plans. From a broadcasting point of view, I'm sure you were the same. We were supposed to go straight from NASCAR to IndyCar with like a 5-minute break. Hallelujah, let's go racing. We then had the opportunity where it got to about 15 minutes before the start of IndyCar, went green, and we had to split the broadcasts. One go one way, one go the other. And I think I ended up doing my commentary was taken on USRN or something or on one of the other channels for IndyCar. But yeah,
the USRN plan was for the Cup race to finish, your IndyCar coverage to be on one channel, and Matthew Owens was going to do the USA Bolivia Copa America game, which he obviously never got to. That game had finished before the Cup race finished because of the delay and such like. So that game was over.
One thing I hated was the fact is that we did 75 laps of Laguna Seca, and in the same time we did 75 laps at Laguna Seca, you guys did the half-an-hour rain delay left, and then 82 laps of an oval. It took nearly 2 hours to do 80 laps. I mean, it was ridiculous. And Ben says, with all due respect to... I was going to say, with all due respect to Isaac Morris as well, I think that they would be incredibly unwise decision for both Deegan and JRM as well.
I think that door is shut. As I said before, the frustration of them losing so many laps, getting the field set when light is fading, laps are being lost, and the tyres are not being changed. It was all a downward spiral. And let's hope that NASCAR have learned some lessons from the weekend, and probably not going to, as I said, probably not going to see that tyre on an oval again now, perhaps until next year. So they'll take that on board, and maybe they'll edit the rules in the postseason for next year about when they can change tyres.
We'll bring you right up to date as soon as we know anything about real changes and when we're going to see the tyres next as well. Moving on to our next story then as well, and we're sticking with what happened at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, because during the race, Kyle Larson and spotter Tyler Monn got into a heated exchange over the radio. Now, in the race, Denny Hamlin was racing Kyle Larson very aggressively and really used him up on the track as well. Now, this reignited their rivalry dating back to the Kansas Spring Race last year, when Hamlin and Larson collided while battling for the win. Then, later in the year, Hamlin squeezed Larson up into the wall at Pocono while fighting for the win there. Larson was fired up after that Pocono race, saying that he deserves to be raced with respect. His spotter was also fired up after the latest tangle between his driver and Hamlin. Larson's spotter said Hamlin always races him aggressively because Larson lets it happen. Larson responded by telling Monn to shut the F up. Now, we know Larson has a reputation for being a clean, fair and respectful driver, while Hamlin isn't afraid to ruffle the feathers. Now, displaying a whatever it takes attitude mentality to win. Now, photo taken as well here by Jonathan Bachman from Getty Images. Matt, does spotter Tyler Monn make a good point here that Larson needs to start standing up for himself, or drivers like Hamlin will continue to use him up on the track because they know that he's not going to retaliate?
Yes, and as you can probably see by my background here, I have some skin in the game in this conversation. Yeah, I mean, they've had plenty of run-ins, haven't they, in the last 18 months? Pocono, Kansas last year, and there was another one, I can't remember where it was, there's been so many. And it was the same for a little while with the Kyle and Kyle show when it was Larson versus Busch. Busch would always come out on top, it seemed like, of Larson back when they were at Gibbs and Ganassi, respectively. Of course, the old slide job race at Chicagoland Spring Straight in line. But it's a bit of that Hamlin being the playground bully, picking on Kyle Larson, and then Kyle Larson's friend next to him going, "You're not going to take that from him, are you? Come on, get on with it." You know, and he didn't take too kindly for it. That's probably not the conversation you should have in the middle of the race. It was under caution, may I add, but perhaps that's a Monday afternoon quarterbacking kind of, or crew chiefing conversation. I guess Larson would know that, you know, Hamlin has got his number to some degree. But I'm not sure it was perhaps right that it should have come out on the radio. But then in the end, as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the tyres, Hamlin finished way back after winning the second stage, and Larson secured a top 10 finish. So in the end, it worked out quite okay for the 5 team.
I personally like it. It reminds me of Alan Permain when he was on the radio to Fisher Keller back in Australia one year. And he was like, Fisher Keller was 3 or 4 seconds down. And he came over the radio saying, "Giancarlo, you are 5 seconds down on Fernando's time. There is no reasonable excuse with the same machinery. You are this slow. Get a grip. Get a move on." I was like, I often think about that now. And I think if only they would do that to Sergio Perez, it might give him a kick up the backside. But they never will.
There's a classic WRC clip, and now I say it's classic. I'm about to say I can't remember. I can't remember if it was Richard Burns driving with Robert Reed next to him, or Marco Martin driving with Michael Park sat next to him in a foggy stage somewhere, Argentina or GB somewhere, and the co-driver goes, "Come on, you can see more than that. Like, yeah, go faster, man." Jack says Larson has to give it back at some point. I don't disagree. And once I think perhaps next time we see the two of them fighting, you know, a mano-a-mano duel for the end of a race somewhere down the line, maybe the tables perhaps will get turned. But they're mates, Larson and Hamlin, or have been off the track. And that was brought up when we talked about it on this show last year, and everybody else did at the time through the Pocono and Kansas stuff. You know, these guys are friends. They play golf together and whatever else. So when Kyle Larson's got any time when he's not driving cars, or flying to Paris to go and see Taylor Swift or whatever else, to do that kind of thing. But yes, I don't disagree. He has to give him a little one of those at some point, just to go, yeah, I'm still here. Don't you worry about me, my friend.
One thing I love about Taylor Swift at the moment is that she's brought in more global revenue than anyone else in the entire world, more than the royal family, more than America, anyone. She's brought in single-handedly on her world tour more revenue to each country than anybody else has done. That is amazing. I honestly think she's bigger than what the Beatles were back in the 60s. It's just such an elevated level.
If I just mentioned the words, we've mentioned Taylor Swift. So if I just mentioned true crime, then we've covered all bases of social media content. Hendrick guys just don't pay back. Yeah, we've saw that with Chase Elliott, haven't we, recently as well in the last couple of years. And as you Chase at Charlotte, of course, when he done, and William Byron, of course, as well. Had the incident with Denny Hamlin last year. So comes around and goes around. But I think Larson is ready. He does need to at some point. Just as I say, just give him a little elbow at some stage.
Now, I've just checked through the rest of the script so that Kobe, I'm not going to touch on anything that Kobe's going to say, but I'd just love to get your thought quickly, Matt, on something that broke over the Spanish Grand Prix weekend in Formula One, because we're talking about true crime. If you want to go into a true crime area, a certain Flavio Briatore has returned to Alpine as executive advisor to Alpine and the boss of Renault himself, in order to try and regroup Renault and their motorsport antics with Alpine as well. Of course, Flavio Briatore was involved in the Crashgate scandal in 2008, when Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed into the wall to bring out a safety car to benefit Fernando Alonso's race strategy after he qualified poorly and was 15th on the grid. That was a plan that was devised between Briatore, Pat Simmons, and Nelson Piquet Jr. as well. Pat Simmons was given a 5-year ban from Formula One. He's since returned and worked with Formula One management themselves. He's crucial also in the new development for the 2026 regulations. He's since left and has now joined Andretti in their bid to join Formula One. Nelson Piquet Jr. was sort of abolished from any wrongdoing. He was given anonymity for revealing the information to the FIA. He went on to become Formula E world champion in their first season. Flavio Briatore was given a lifetime ban from Formula One that was overturned in 2010. He's the manager of Fernando Alonso, and now he's back in the sport. So, Matt, what's your take on Flavio returning? Is it a good thing or a bad thing for Alpine in what seems to be their winter turning into season of discontent?
Yes, but all of a sudden at the weekend, didn't they go quite well, Alpine? Both got through to Q3, and they both scored points, I think, didn't they, in the end? They didn't trip over each other. There was no hurt feelings between the drivers. It's all peace and harmony all of a sudden in Flavland, Alpine down at Enstone. Of course, to add to your what's he done for us lately, he was also, of course, involved at Benetton, which is basically the same team, with their very illegal car in '94. There you go, I said it. It wasn't an illegal car. That's what they'll tell you. I don't know. It's just, again, this works before, so bringing back, I'm not sure it's got massive amount of legs, especially with the current owners crop of Alpine, of course, with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce as part of that, and everybody else in that conglomerate, Anthony Joshua, of course. It's a very strange decision, but as I said, all of a sudden they were quite good at Barcelona, so we'll have to go wait and see how they go this weekend at the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, they're bringing some upgrades as well, actually, after not bringing any at the previous race as well in Barcelona. Adam says Kyle Larson could give Denny Hamlin a little bump on a short track, Bristol or Martinsville as well. That's entirely possible. Nah, spinning. Jack just wants drama. I want the drama too. I was really annoyed that I was in the commentary, had to leave, and then another fight broke out. I was like, just once. I came in to be told you'd have fights and close racing. I've yet to see my fight, but I've had some close racing. But well,
you've seen some very close racing in NASCAR this season.
Yeah.
Goodness me,
it's been fantastic. Oh, two closest finishes
Chicago
of all
coming
time
up
as well.
There'll be maybe a punch or two at Chicago.
I'm looking forward to that. We're in the box as well for practice and qualifying. Oh God, just please. My microphone, by the way, is getting very hot. They really do get hot, because they're phantom pads, so the mic gets hot and it feels like you're holding about. Well, have you ever done cooking and lifted the pan up and the hob, the handle's hot? That's what these feel like right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna put it down for a few minutes because I'm gonna hand it over to Matt for the latest on the grid EPI update.
Mic drop from Josh. Thank you. A very busy weekend it was in the Grid Endurance Performance Index. Many races, and we'll start with the big one at the weekend, which was at Watkins Glen, as sort of trailed a little bit before. Rain affected, sailing 6 hours, won by Porsche. They just continue to rack up the wins this year in whatever they turn their hands to, apart from the one where it went a little bit wrong. Dane Cameron and Felipe Nasser coming out on top just outside New York with the victory in the GTP class. LMP2 were back for their third start of the year. It's only their third start of the year. Luis Perez Compact, Nick Nielsen, and Lilo Wadu getting the victory in LMP2. That is a big story. Talk about that more in Women in Motorsport later on in the week here on the Grid Network. In GTD, in the Pro class, Aston Martin snatched victory right at the end with Ross Gunn and Alex Riberas, and Russell Ward, Phil Ellis, and this weekend joined by Indy Donche, winning again for Winwood Racing. They've now won 4 out of the 5 races so far this year in the GTD class. British GT was at Spa 24 Hours coming up this weekend. British GT kicked off the Spa week with their race on Sunday. Kevin Say and Maxi Gertz winning for Mercedes. GT World Challenge Asia was back at Fuji. Bo Yuang and Hong Li Yi won on Saturday, but they were the first car to retire on Sunday, and that handed victory to Anthony Liu and Alessio Picariello, another Porsche. Talking of Porsches, they also won at the Nürburgring on Saturday. Julian Andlauer and Sven Muller winning the third round of the Nürburgring Landstrecke Series. Here is the updated point score through week number 13, and we've had a change at the top. Last week after Le Mans, with Lawrence Van Voorby taking the lead from Andre Lotterer, so his second spell at the top of the Grid EPI Championship for this year. Kevin Estre there, co-teammate in that WEC car in third position. Dane Cameron stays fourth, or comes back up to fourth. Felipe Nasr there in eighth after their win at Watkins Glen. This weekend, as I mentioned, it is the Spa 24 Hours, the centenary race. That is going to be a big celebration. They've had the Tractor Town drive down into the Spa town this afternoon or this evening their time, which is always a great event. Trust me, I know, because I saw it for myself in 2013 and it was spectacular. There is the top 50 with Vanfort at the top of it and Madison Snow down there at the bottom of the top 50. That Spa 24 Hours is the only Grid Endurance Performance Index race of the week, and it's the third 24-hour race of the month, with, of course, Le Mans and the Nürburgring already under our belts. So the final big 24-hour race of the Big Four coming at you this weekend. We'll tell you all about that on this Grid Endurance Performance Index slot next week and preview what's coming up as we roll into July. Now, you've heard very little from him so far, but Kobe's got plenty more of this week's headlines.
Thanks, Matt. Time for some more motorsports news from around the world. And with the NTT IndyCar Series leaving NBC Sports for Fox Sports, this opened the door for the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and NBC to extend their media rights agreement. Under the new agreement, NBC will broadcast 17 hours of IMSA racing on NBC, which is nearly a 50% increase in broadcast network coverage per year compared to the previous deal. The races will also continue to stream live on Peacock. NBC's IMSA coverage has grown 37% in the last 5 years since they acquired the IMSA media rights, as last season was the most watched season up to date, while this year's IMSA coverage on Peacock has roughly seen a 60% increase in total minutes streamed to date versus last year. IMSA president John Doonan said they're thrilled to continue their relationship with NBC and the increase of hours of sports car racing on the NBC broadcast network, graphic courtesy of IMSA. In 2025, Paraguay will become the 38th different country to host World Rally Championship. Earlier this year, World Rally Championship also announced another new rally for 2025 in Saudi Arabia. The new multi-year agreement to host the rally in Paraguay helps WRC accomplish its goal of bringing 2 events annually back to South America. Stages will take place throughout the Atapua region, which annually hosts the South American Rally Championship on the red gravel roads running parallel to the stunning Parana River, photo courtesy of World Rally Championship. And now our next story has major implications for pick a winner. We're standing with World Rally Championship as Sebastian Ogier and co-driver Vincent Leday have withdrawn Rally Poland. Both were involved in a road traffic collision yesterday morning. The incident took place as Ogier and Leday were preparing their pace notes for the Gold Dap special stage while driving a road car at standard practice for rally reconnaissance. According to the statement from Toyota Gazoo Racing WRT, Ogier and Leday and 2 occupants of the other vehicle were taken to the hospital for further evaluation. All involved received scans, and luckily, serious injuries were avoided. Landais was discharged from the hospital, but Ogier had to stay overnight in the hospital for further evaluation. Early this morning, Ogier posted a photo of himself sitting on an airplane while wearing a neck brace, saying that he was on the way home to get some rest, although he's feeling much better. As a last-minute replacement, two-time World Rally champion Kyle Larson will replace Ogier at Rally Poland at the very last minute. Photo courtesy of WRC. After Sarah Bovey was involved in a hard crash during the sailing 6 hours of the Glen last weekend, the Iron Dames have withdrawn from this weekend's 24 hours of Spa. Bovey was taken to the hospital for further evaluation after the crash in the 6-hour IMSA endurance race and later released a video saying that she was doing fine. However, the Iron Dames felt it was best to withdraw from Spa to allow Bovey additional time to recover. And I'm also not sure if they could find anyone else to meet the driver requirements to be in this car. So it was a real unfortunate situation for the Iron Dames there. But you can hear more about the Iron Dames on a future episode of Women in Motorsports, graphic courtesy of the team. Richard Childress Racing announced that competition director Andy Petrie will retire effective immediately. Petrie said he's grateful to team owner Richard Childress for the impact he has had on his career, including the wonderful memories and on-track success. While his day-to-day involvement at RCR is changing, he'll continue to be a fan and supporter of the Welcome North Carolina-based organization, wishing them the best of luck for the rest of the 2024 season and beyond. And as a result, RCR named him as the interim competition director. Former Indy Next driver Toby Sowery will make his NTT IndyCar Series debut next weekend at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Sowery will become the latest driver in the number 51 Honda for Dale Coyne Racing in 2019. When he raced full-time in Indy Next, Sowery finished third in the championship and got his only career win in that series at Portland International Raceway. In the last couple of years, Sowery has spent his time in sports car racing competing in the LMP2 class. Now, he finally got his big break to race in IndyCar. Photo courtesy of Dale Coyne Racing. And I'm going to end this segment on a serious note. During last weekend's Virginia Nationals at Virginia Motorsports Park, 16-time NHRA champion John Force was injured in a 300-mile-per-hour crash. The 157-time NHRA race winner's funny car suffered a catastrophic engine failure, which set the car on fire in a fireball as it slammed hard into the concrete wall on the left side, and then went into the wall hard on the right side before coming to a stop. Force was conscious and talking to safety personnel after the crash, but he was transported to the hospital for further evaluation. And at the moment of tonight's episode, this is the latest update we have on Force's condition from Monday night. We learned that NHRA safety personnel extricated Force from his car and stabilized him before he was airlifted to a hospital by helicopter. With Force in the intensive care unit, his doctors are purposely moving slowly to assess the extent of his injuries because of the severe impact taken by the 75-year-old. Medical staff won't provide treatment or a recovery timeline until they've completed a total evaluation. The Force family was reported to be at the hospital by John's side, and the family plans to maintain a presence while the John Force Racing team competes this weekend in Norwalk, Ohio. Be sure to follow John Force Racing on social media if you want to see the updates I just read, and for future updates on his condition. The photo courtesy of Z-Max Dragway. And now going to transition to our Pick a Winner segment with Matt.
Thank you, Kobe. Yeah, all the best to John Force. That was a horrifying accident at the weekend. And just as he was looking like he was about to retire, he might have to take an early retirement. But hopefully that won't happen. And all the best to him and the Force family and the team. Time for Pick a Winner. There are the standings. Of course, as you can see by the blue numbers on the graphic, plenty of points were scored over the weekend, and Matt B is now 3 points clear of Ben Schneider at the top of the standings. Ben is joined by Adam in second position on 24. We have pretty much everything that's on this weekend, apart from the Spa 24 hours, has Pick a Winner attached to it. And we're going to start with the Formula One sprint race. We do a sprint race weekend at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Has to be Max Verstappen, surely, is the pick. That is who I'm going for. What say you, Kobe?
Yeah, the last few races, I've been very encouraged to see McLaren been able to take the fight to Red Bull. And each time I thought I was going to get sneaky and get a McLaren victory, but I'm losing ground and pick a winner. So I'm going to have to go back to old reliable Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen is definitely going to win the sprint race as well, but it'll be different when it comes towards the race with the upgrades that the teams are bringing, and weather in the air as well could play a factor. But the sprint race, it's just short enough, and this is where Max succeeds. So yeah, definitely Max.
Yes, hold fire your Grand Prix pick until after the sprint race, because I feel like it might be yet another good one at the weekend, as it was in Barcelona. MotoGP is back after their calendar changed in forced spring break, and they're in Holland for the Dutch TT at Assen this weekend. Of course, they always have a sprint race in MotoGP. I think this is a little bit more wide open than the F1 sprint. I am going to take the king of the sprint in MotoGP, though, and that's Jorge Martin.
Yeah, Jorge Martin's always a good pick for the sprints. But given how things have happened with this contract situation and his move to a new manufacturer next year, it'll be interesting to see if Jorge Martin's form is going to suffer because of this. But given how fresh this still is to a certain extent, I'm going to go with Pecco Bagnaia to get the job done in the sprint.
All three of us picking very different ones and all different bikes as well. I'm going Maverick Vinales on the Aprilia to take it. He too is moving manufacturer as well at the end of the season, so it'll be a whole new lineup there. But he wants to go out on Aprilia with a high, and also next season he could become the first ever rider to win 4 races on 4 different manufacturer bikes. So that could be something for next year to keep a note down on.
Yeah, absolutely. So MotoGP back. We've also got Formula E back, and they're at the Grid Network home racetrack of Portland. Joe will be on the ground this weekend. It is a double header. We have Jackson Lambros at Laguna Seca for IndyCar this weekend, and we're back-to-back with Grid Network personnel at the racetrack this weekend with Joe at Portland. I hate having to pick first all of these. I am going to go for Saturday's race for Ollie Rowland. That's a curveball pick.
Yeah, and it's also the last ever Portland E-Prix. As you know, that next year we're going to see the return of the Miami E-Prix, but it's not going to be on the city streets. It's going to be at the Homestead Miami Speedway in 2025. But for race 1 at Portland, give me Nick Cassidy to get the job done in Rip City. Who you got, Josh?
Same as you, I was going with Nick Cassidy as well, who was really strong here last year. Expect it to be another, as we've always been saying, Peloton-style race, and really I won't get over there. Really I'm not going to be there, so I'm going to eventually shift over to IndyCar for when we go to Portland as well as our home race. But I can't wait to see what Joe and Nicole bring when they're both trackside this weekend. I'm going to be insanely jealous.
Yeah, we've got Nicole on site too. I did forget to mention that. There'll be a second opportunity, of course, to pick for Formula E for the Sunday race, but you'll have to do that on social media. Our last a winner pick tonight is just me and Kobe. It's WRC. We talked about it in Poland. Ogier was probably going to be my pick, but now he's out, and get well soon to Seb and Vincent Londe, the co-driver. Kalle Rovanperä comes swooping in at the last minute, and I think he picks up the victory.
Yeah, that would be quite a story for Kalle Rovanperä to come in at the very last minute. I believe I read he was about to go on like a vacation or something before he got the call to come do this. It would be great. You know, be like, hey, I'm going on vacation, but last minute I'm going to Poland to racing to get a race victory. That would be really cool for Rovanperä to win a rally he wasn't scheduled to race. But I'm going to go with a different rally racer. Give me Ottonic to win in Poland.
Cue Kalle Rovanperä having pictures of his trophy in departures as he takes it on holiday with him Sunday night out of Poland. All of those races to pick from across the weekend. Of course, there's the Grand Prix of Formula One. There's the Grand Prix of MotoGP. There's the second race of Portland and the NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville. Ben says picked up 2 points this week, but still lost ground to the leader. Unreal. Yeah, this is the way that the pick a winner gets you. Kisa has 11 points already. That's the Grid Network dog, for those that don't know. Surely Max hasn't won 11 times this year alone. Yes, Max has won 11 races so far this year. And if you take this year and the last 2, and you include sprint races and Grand Prix, just one more win of some kind would be the 50th win in the last 2.5 years for Max Verstappen, if he can pick one up at the weekend. Ben also says, I wonder if Kisa and Jonathan should be switched. Kisa should be on 9, I think. 7 Max Grand Prix wins, 2 Max. We'll sort the leaderboard out. We'll sort the leaderboard out for you before next week's show. But plenty of options to pick from over the weekend. Matthew Owens, good evening to you, Mr. Owens. He says, I can't believe I keep forgetting this. He's gone with Verstappen, Martin, Cassidy, and he's picking Denny Hamlin to win at the Nashville Superspeedway on Sunday. Adam says, sprint for Formula One Max Verstappen, sprint for MotoGP Jorge Martin, Nick Cassidy in Portland, and Rovanperä for WRC Poland. So a conglomeration there of all of our picks for Adam for the weekend. Get your picks in on the Grid Network social media and use the hashtag pick a winner right on time, bang on an hour, as we head towards the Hots and Knots section presented by Insert Your Company Name here. I've really not got much to say this weekend that I haven't knotted about NASCAR earlier on. But we'll start with the Hots. Plenty of people on social media on Sunday afternoon saying, "Oh, that was a bit of a dull Grand Prix." What?
It was great.
Well, it was really good. It was one of those not much happened races, but it was still quite good.
Again, this happened last year at Spain, didn't it? Do you remember where it was another strategy Grand Prix? There was moves left and right, and there was the threat of rain in the air that George Russell thought he was illusioning, and it just turned out he was
sweating. Yeah, it's raining.
But
don't worry.
These now, the diehard F1 fans know that was a great Grand Prix, despite the fact that Max won. The people who are new to F1 went, "Oh, that was boring because Max won." It doesn't matter. What that race showed us was that Red Bull are not the best qualifiers at the moment. They haven't had pole for the last 3 weekends. And they're only ahead in race pace due to pit lanes. That's it. Because Lando was catching him so much. If we had another 2 laps, he would have got him. So it's not over.
Yeah, not sure. I'm not sure if Max was just pacing himself towards the end there. He did get quite close, didn't it? Right at the end. But it's good to see that, Lando lost that time at the beginning behind George Russell, and that was kind of what separated them at the end of the race an hour and a half later. So just proves that McLaren have got certainly the second fastest car at the minute, if not the equal fastest.
I think my absolute, hot from the weekend was that start. That 600 meters from lights out to start. It was so weird because what happened was Lando on pole, Max second. They get away perfectly, and then Lando just squeezes Max onto the grass. So that puts them sort of in an odd angle. At the same time, the 2 Mercedes are battling with the 2 Ferraris, but George is right behind Max, who then gets squeezed onto the grass. He darts out alongside Lando, gets sort of like a dual slipstream, and just sails right round the outside of the pair of them. That is one of the best moves I have seen on the start since Alonso did it at the same track in 2013, and he did it in 2011 as well. It was superb. It caught every single commentator out, and I think every single fan never saw that coming. That was brilliant. And I think I haven't got many other hots on the weekend because it all just sort of went downhill. But that was fantastic. I think the other hot I'd got is actually IndyCar and the rule they put in for the restarts that you couldn't overtake until you were out of the last corner at Laguna Seca, because that saved so many restarts and pointers. So good change there. And having Jackson trackside was unbelievable. I don't know if you've caught up on any of the JB commentary, but he was on the Ninja call and he was also on the Discord, but he was typing out to us what was going on. So it was
I saw that.
In the pits. Yeah.
I did see that.
It was fantastic. It was brilliant. So that's definitely a hot there.
Of course, we had the whole IndyCar at Laguna Seca last year where they just kept crashing into each other at the last corner on the restarts. Matthew Owen says Christopher Bell continues to win over and over at Loudon by bell or high water, because of course he did the double at the weekend, winning the Xfinity race on Saturday as well. Adam says hot Christopher Bell sweeping. Alex Palou winning at Laguna Seca in the Pride scheme in Pride Month, which was excellent. To your point about George Russell, I leapt off the sofa at the beginning because I thought, here we go, we're going to have both of them, him and Lando, giving Max a run, much like we had at Canada, of course, a couple of weeks ago. And then it kind of settled down a little bit, but it was still a really good Grand Prix. My other hot from the weekend is that the British touring cars have finally managed to sort themselves out and have 3 different winners. That's twice now in 2 weekends that we've had 3 different winners, although shame that Mikey Doble didn't manage to hold off Jake Hill, who is obviously probably the fastest car on the grid now at the end of race 3.
I can't wait to get to Knock Hill and see what changes they've made to those BMWs and what Napa have done. Napa are weird. Have they won a race this year? I can't remember if Sutton might have won one or not.
I think Sutton's won 1, hasn't he?
Yeah, and because the Napas have just gone right downhill. But They had problems in testing, and then they had big problems at the season opener as well. And then this new stupid rules come in where if any part of your bodywork is hanging off, you're going to get black and white flagged. So Napa have got this problem at the rear right where it's incredibly weak, the wheel arch fenders. So everyone's just running into them because it's going to get them out of the race. So they've got the summer break now, 5 weeks into a croft to fix it. But then it's like 2 weeks' time in Knock Hill. That's when I'm next there in Knock Hill. And I'm going to be walking around on in the practice sessions and everything. And I'm going to be looking at every single one of those cars thinking, right, what's wrong? Yeah. Get me screwdriver out.
A tug on. That I understand the rule about loose bodywork and the famous one of Gordon Shedden at Snetterton all those years ago where he used the big foam pad to take off his front wing that was hanging off is the classic example of it. But they weren't going anywhere.
No.
Yes, they were. It's a bit of a skew angle at the back like this. Rowbottom got pinged in the first race, and then Sutton from a podium position, I think it was in the second race, got pinged. But I can understand the rule, but I guess there is no leeway on it. They've got it in as a bit of black and white. I have a hot actually from Sunday for the Grand Prix. Everyone goes, oh no, it's a Martin Brundle off week. Karun Chandhok is absolutely knocking it out of the park at the moment on Sky. He's been fantastic the last few weeks that he stepped in. And also, you mentioned that it's the British Touring Car summer break. That's because the hottest of hot races that is ever hot starts on Saturday. It's the Tour de France, my absolute favourite race of the whole year. It doesn't involve any cars apart from the one with the man in it going like this at the start of the stage waving the flag. So that's my hot. Looking forward to that this weekend. I don't have many knots apart from the tyre thing we talked about.
You do have a race circuit there, the Tour de France. Don't you end up at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps this year?
They went there a couple of years ago and went. Obviously, they can't this weekend because it's in use for the 24 hour. But they did go to Spa a few years ago. They came in at La Source at the hairpin, went down past the old pits, all the way around to exit of Paul Frere. So they didn't quite do a full lap, and then double backed through the runoff area and out towards Stanlow Village, out of the old track. We had the hand cycling at Brands Hatch a few years ago for the. I say a few years ago. Goodness me, it's 12 years ago now. London 2012. Can you believe? Which Alex Minardi winning at Brands Hatch in the power hand cycling. So yes, looking forward to the TDF at the beginning of the weekend. Struggling on knots apart from New Hampshire tyre debacle, which we've covered off.
The delay for me would still be a big
knot. That whole delay was just but we've.
Oh, I tell you what is a knot. McLaren insisting on having Donald Trump at Grand Prix.
Oh, is it happening
What's
again?
That about? It happened. It was supposed to happen at the Spanish Grand Prix, but the motorhome mysteriously burnt down.
Oh yes, that is a knot. Yeah, the fire in the McLaren kitchen.
Coincidentally, he didn't. Yeah. Donald didn't turn up. He was supposed to be at the Grand Prix, but because of the fire, didn't go. They deemed it too much of a security risk.
Two fires in the paddock at Barcelona in the last 10 years after the Williams one, after the Maldonado one. That's
I did find it weird. I do another weird thing as well. Where Williams was in the garage positioning in 2012 is the same positioning about where McLaren were. This year.
Really?
The same pit box garages. So that's
spotted completely cast.
I would not be going there. And to be honest with you, the weirdest thing in Barcelona is, I got trapped in the lift once because there's the top floor where all the media center is on that balcony bit. Then there's the medium floor that takes you down to the paddock. And then there's a basement where all the cars park for the teams, the hospitality trucks, all the food vendors and all that lot. And I got stuck in that once as well because the lift went up and down, up and down, up and down. The lifts in Barcelona are more cursed than anything else because I've told you the story before about when I got trapped going up to the commentary box and had to tail off the edge and sort of drop down onto the next floor because everything got gated up. If you go to Barcelona at the circuit, don't go in a lift there. You get trapped. Top tip.
I think I'm right in saying another knot is that Josh isn't going to be on the show for the next couple of weeks. That's obviously a knot, isn't it? Because you're taking your couple of weeks off. Or are you
Yeah,
back with us
I
next
think
week?
I'm back next week, and then after that, I'm taking 2 weeks off.
Oh, I've got
Yeah,
my
yes.
calendar in the wrong position.
Yeah, I'm going to be at the World Superbike event. So on the 11th,
You
12th,
just
13th,
reminded me.
14th, or that. Yeah,
You
so
just
I'm going to
reminded me.
be at Donington for that. Go on.
Quickly, another potential hot that has come to light today from the motorbike world. At Silverstone MotoGP, which is beginning of August, we have the British Super Sport Championship as part of the support package, and it has been Super Sport or Super Stock for the last couple of years as part of the sport. Matt Oxley reporting today that BSB Superbike could be part of the MotoGP weekend in 25 at Silverstone.
Oh,
So it'll be like the old Formula One days with touring cars on the support.
Get in! I like
If that
that.
happens, that'll be excellent.
I'll definitely go in there then. It'll be easy to get into for one. But yeah, I'm going down to Donington. I'm spending the first half of the week. Well, actually, the whole week. So with my sister, her partner, and my niece, and then my nephew's joining at the weekend. Then I am going to be at the track at Donington all 3 days, meeting up with Maddie Patterson, Simon Patterson, all the team, Mallory and Lizzie as well, watching the Superbikes and the women's WCR as well. And then the next week, I'm going down to York and I'm spending a few days with a friend of mine there, having a chilled week off because it's the only 2 weeks of the year, because there's any IndyCar on that weekend because of the Olympic break, whatever it is. I can take one race off and get 2 weeks off. So yeah, I'm going to go and have a well-deserved break for the first time in a couple of years, which I can't wait.
Excellent. I think apart from the fact that we should also say good luck and have a great weekend to Joe at Portland again this weekend in the hopefully not Grid Network's final appearance at a Formula E weekend. I think that's probably us done for Grid Tonight for this week.
Looks like it is as well. So taking a look at our upcoming schedule as well. Saturday, you can stay tuned for our coverage of Formula E, as Matt said, from the Portland E-Prix doubleheader. That is going to be a Portland International Raceway as well for Saturday will be the penultimate time. Sunday will be the last time in the foreseeable as well. Sunday, our Grid Live wrap-up. That's 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville. Monday, Grid Encore, recapping the Trucks Xfinity races at Nashville, plus ARCA at Berlin, and the Formula 2 and Formula 3 races in Austria. I'll be sending a video over to Ben and Brandon as well. Congratulations on them too, by the way, for having a centenary of encore shows as well. How fantastic it is here on the Grid Network as well. So please do, in that vein, continue to support our channel, and you can subscribe here on YouTube. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Now we are on the road to 2,000 subscribers as well. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications for when we go on the air, and you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. You can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network, and we encourage you to join these fine folk who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races and continue expanding our coverage. The link to all of that is in the video description. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they will thank you on the air as well. Our own Joe Samiego and Nicole Fry will be at Portland this weekend covering the Formula E doubleheader, and don't hesitate to show your support for their coverage as well. So for Kobe Lambeth and Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.